Alright guys, here we're going to look at the energy systems. So going through our first topic, what I'll do is I've got a short video which will go through quickly each of the energy systems and the relation to sport, and then we'll go through each of the theory components separately.
Energy is needed to produce physical movement, maintain body temperature, and keep up with all the metabolic activities in the body. In our bodies, all physical movement relies on the compound adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is stored in the muscles, so it is immediately available to produce movement. However, storage of ATP in the muscles is limited, so any movement that lasts longer than a few seconds requires more ATP to be produced. Our bodies have three systems that can produce ATP: the ATP-PCR system, the glycolytic system, or lactic acid system, and the oxidative system. The first two systems are anaerobic systems, meaning oxygen is not required to produce ATP, and the oxidative system is aerobic, because oxygen is needed for ATP production. The ATP-PCR system is based on movements lasting about 5 to 15 seconds, such as strength power movements like a golf swing, jumps, throwing, or racket serves. These type of quick burst movements can be done with ATP that is stored in the muscles. During short sustained power movements, or any quick bursts such as a short sprint, ATP will provide the energy alone for the first few seconds, with a compound called creatine phosphate, or PCR, buffering the ATP for another few seconds. Like ATP, the amount of PCR is limited, so this system can provide energy for movements up to about 15 seconds in total. This energy system produces ATP very quickly, but not over a long duration. Next, energy demands shift to the glycolytic system. This system relies on the rapid breakdown of carbohydrates. Glucose, which is one of the most basic forms of carbohydrates, is constantly circulating in the bloodstream, and glycogen is a stored form of glucose in the muscles and liver. This blood glucose, or glycogen, is broken down to create ATP through a process called glycolysis. During this energy supply process, a substance called lactate is formed and hydrogen ions are released. It's believed that the accumulation of these hydrogen ions in the muscle causes the muscle to become more acidic, contributing to fatigue and a burning sensation. Exercises that are performed at maximum rates for between 1 to 2 minutes, such as a 200-yard dash, depend heavily on the lactic acid system for ATP energy. This energy system produces ATP very quickly, but again, not over a long duration. The oxidative system involves the use of oxygen. Through two complex metabolic processes, the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain, ATP is produced. This energy system, with all of its processes, can't produce ATP nearly as quickly as the first two systems. However, this system can produce ATP for a much longer duration. This system can use carbs, fats, or if necessary, even protein. However, fats and proteins have to be broken down, so when the system uses them, the process becomes longer. This system is used for longer duration activities, such as a bike ride or long run. The chart on the screen shows an estimate of the percentage of energy used from each system, along with time plotted at the top. As you can see, the ATP-PCR system dominates at the beginning. Then glycolysis becomes the dominant energy provider, and then energy really relies on the oxidative system. Here are two other charts. The one on the left shows an estimated rate of ATP production per second for each system. It also shows the rate for carbs and fats for the oxidative system. You can see how much more rapidly the ATP, PCR, and glycolysis systems are at ATP production. On the left is a chart showing the aerobic ATP production for trained and untrained people, showing the benefits of well-trained persons, as they don't run out of energy easily. Each of these systems can be trained to be more productive. By changing your workout routines, doing explosive moves like box jumps, you can improve System 1. By doing circuit routines, going from one exercise to the next, with little to no rest in between and using lighter weights, you can train System 2. And by doing a 20 to 30 minute cardio session of low to moderate intensity, like walking, jogging, or biking, you can improve System 3. It's a good practice to train all three systems by altering your workout routines. The body is amazing, and it adapts very quickly. Changing up routines also provides mental stimulation, which helps overall health and can help people stay motivated to work out regularly. Remember this, folks. Treat your body as differently as possible as often as possible.
So we can see that by that video it could go through energy systems as a whole. But again, we'll just go back through the key points that you guys need to know. So with our food fuels, we know that with our oxygen system, we have the carbohydrate, the fat, and the protein used to resynthesize the ATP. And then that's how it's stored in our body. We can see there. So aerobic energy, we know that our fuels use carbohydrates, fats, then proteins, and the byproducts being that water and carbon dioxide. And we know that what type of activity we want to use that for. Our anaerobic energy, we utilise that stored PC, and we utilise the fact that carbohydrates are easy to break down, produces that high amounts of ATP, PC quickly, and produces lactic acid in high amounts, which may lead to fatigue. It has a prolonged recovery time because we don't have that oxygen being used as part of that active recovery. So with our foods, we can see there how long it takes to break each of them down. So the fats, we get more, but it's harder to break down. The carbohydrates get less, but it can be an immediate source to break down, and the protein as our last resort. Okay, that being the Krebs cycle of how we actually break down the ATP molecule for energy. We should know that already. And that's what we use that energy for, is for the skeletal muscles and the organs around the body. So our three basic energy systems are PC, lactic acid, and aerobic. So what we need to know is the duration of how long that system works for, the intensity, and the recovery. They're our main things that we need to know. So there are key things about our PC. That recovery is that half stores for 30 seconds and full stores after 3 minutes. Our fuel there, and there's our examples of sports. So tennis, backhand, volleyball, spike, all those short-term activities are high intensity. We already know. A lactic acid system, we can see there the duration sort of pushing past 90 seconds, but again it depends on the individual. We just know it's that prolonged high intensity, and the recovery for every 10 seconds of effort, it takes 6 minutes to fully recover and remove that lactic acid build-up. And the carbohydrates is what is used in that as a fuel. So there's our examples of lactic acid movements, so prolonged high intensity movements. And then we talked about aerobic system before. Duration, it's that extended duration, that moderate intensity. The recovery is instant, so we have that active recovery because our oxygen is being used in that active recovery process. And then we know the fuels there, and we know the examples of what activities are being used. Interplay of energy systems, so that's the important one. We'll probably get a question about that. So it's about acknowledging that all three energy systems are functioning at the same time. So the intensity of duration will determine which is the dominant system. So we've talked about it plenty. So a game of netball, our PC is that short intervals of high intensity, so the initial leads and shots. Our lactic acid comes in if we have that extended duration of high intensity without adequate recovery. If we've got plenty of times that we've got that 3 minutes, we recover our full 10-minute 10-second stores, then we can work a lot in the PC system. But again, you guys know from that assignment that you did that you're working a lot in the lactic acid because of the lack of recovery. And our aerobic system is used a lot, so when we're working at moderate intensity. So that can be standing around, sitting on the bench, walking back to position, standing around the ring, waiting for things to happen. Whenever we're doing that, we're actively recovering those PC stores and trying to remove that lactic acid. You can see there a diagram, they showed it in the video as well. So with our nutrition, you can see, look at our high and low GI foods. So high GI foods are those quick breakdown. Carbohydrates that are low GI are those complex, like your pasta and rice, which can break down over a long period of time. Carbohydrate loading, we talked about that. Supplying the body with those low GI carbohydrates for good just before more a long-term event. So if we're going to need that energy over a long period of time, we tend to carbohydrate load. So with this information video, what we can do is we can use this as a point of reference, as well as our resources that we've also got for that first topic. So our energy systems topic, start of our exam revision, we can go to this and then make sure we're doing questions, reviewing language, terminology, structure, and then we can almost review through each exam how many questions we're going to get from this energy system section. So please utilise.